All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to allow us to get on the road here in Solano County, Winters, California, at Sierra Orchards, where I'm grateful to be hosted by Craig and his wife, Julie, a team that is assembled here that represents the diversity of support from the state of California and agricultural space and the environmental space, the lands and natural resource area. We have our Secretary of Agriculture here. We have our Secretary of the EPA, and of course, Wade Crowfoot, who runs our Natural Resource Agency. And we're here with purpose and intention, and that's to build on California's legacy of open space, to build on California's legacy of environmental stewardship, to build on California's leadership as it relates to biodiversity and conservation. We're here to advance the collective cause of bringing people together across their differences to advance a different kind of mindset in terms of sustainability, to focus on some extraordinary things that are already occurring in the state and begin the process of scaling these efforts and advancing a cause that we hope will impact not just the rest of the country, but parts all across the globe. I'm here as well with a particular bias, and that is a bias that was brought to me generationally. A grandfather that studied for decades native plants and native species here in the state of California. We have over 5,500 plant species in the state of California. 40% of them are endemic, meaning native to the state of California. Arthur Menzies, my grandfather, after spending years and years in Corregidor as a prisoner of war, came back with one mindset, and that was a focus on California native plants. There's a wonderful Menzies garden in the Bay Area that's testament to his contribution in this space. And I've always shared a little bit of that bias, and that history has been brought to bear and to light for me over the course of my 50 plus years. And it's in his spirit and in that light that I'm here today to advance an effort to codify efforts that are already underway here in the state of California, but to advance them more formally by establishing a framework to preserve and protect over 30% of the state's lands to be conserved here in the state of California, and extend that to our coastal waters as well. 30 by 30 by 2030 is the mandate and the goal. We'll be the first state in the United States of America to do both land conservation and coastal conservation. And we will join other parts of the globe, some 38 nations and some national governments that have done the same. This is an international movement. California, as the fifth largest economy in the world, needs to flex its muscles, needs to assert itself and to advance that cause, not only as it relates to its global impacts, but hopefully jumpstart similar efforts in other states across this country. It's an audacious goal, and it's an achievable goal. And it's a goal that's consistent with our stated goals on our efforts to change the way we produce and consume energy here in the state of California and advance our low-carbon green growth strategies here in the state of California. It builds on the executive order that we advanced a few weeks back as it relates to our clean car mandate by 2035, builds on the work we're already doing in our cap and trade programs, our RPS, our renewable portfolio standards, and the spectrum of efforts we're doing not only to decarbonize our economy, but to jumpstart our economy by greening our economy and leading in the next big international economic opportunity, and that is the green sector. And so as advancement in this cause, we cannot forget about our lands, our working lands. We can't forget about our deserts, our wetlands. We can't forget about our coasts. We can't forget about our ranchers. We can't forget about our farmers. We can't forget about agriculture here in the state of California. Just think about this, 70,000 farmers and ranchers here in the state. Some 400 commodities that we sell to the world. We not only sell to the world, but we sell to this nation over a third of all the vegetables, 2/3 of the fruits and nuts like the walnuts that are produced here at Sierra Orchards. That's California's game that we do better than anybody else. But the other game that separates our game from the game played elsewhere is innovation. And trying to bring innovation and conservation, innovation in agriculture, innovation and land use, innovation and species and biodiversity protections is really where we can truly separate ourselves. And that's the spirit and the construct, the architecture behind this executive order that we're advancing here today, to create a collaborative and to create a collaborative mindset where we're not pitting one group against the other. We're bringing people to the table, bringing people quite literally around the table to advance these goals. We have an abundant mindset here in the state of California. That's what makes California so unique, so special. And that's the mindset we're bringing to this executive order, to bring parties together that in the past haven't always seen eye to eye, that have struggled to work in a collaborative spirit, and to bring those parties together to advance our collective goal of future-proofing the state of California, to making California more resistant and resilient to the realities of climate change. I've said this ad nauseum. It's pretty self-evident to anybody that lives out here on the west coast of the United States, let alone here in the state proper. The hots are getting a lot hotter. The dries are getting a lot drier. Just recall, it was 2011 to 2017 where we experienced an historic drought that led 163 million trees dead in its wake. Not only the hot's getting hotter, the dry's getting drier, the wets are getting a lot wetter. These atmospheric rivers that we're experiencing that we've never experienced in the past. The hottest August in recorded history that we just experienced here in the state of California. The hottest recorded, arguably, hottest recorded temperature ever in modern recorded world history that we experienced some 7+ weeks ago in Death Valley, California, 130 degrees. This is real. This is happening. And as I've said on many different occasions, if you don't believe in science, you got to believe your own eyes. You don't believe in science and data, you're not open to argument, interested perhaps in one thing, that's evidence. And that is the observed evidence that is self-evident here in the state of California about things radically changing as scientists had predicted years and years ago. What they predicted, though, we anticipated happening, occurring, and manifesting years and years from now. And the reality is happening much sooner than some had even predicted. And as a consequence of that, we've got to accelerate our efforts here in this state. We've got to do more, and we've got to manage things better. And so I'm here in a remarkable place. Since 1980, Sierra Orchard's been a leader. Craig and his team have been, they're true pioneers in the California spirit. I think it was Horace Greeley said, "Go west, young man, go west." We talk in terms of that pioneering spirit, about what makes California truly great, what makes that dream so relevant and so enlivening to so many people, the evocative nature of that pioneering spirit. And that innovation, that entrepreneurial mindset is present here at this orchard since 1980, has been moving in a different direction from many of the neighbors. Perhaps people may have rolled their eyes 10, 15, 20 years ago. People may have just dismissed Craig and his wife's work and his family's work here, and Ramon's work on this farm as an outlier. And now folks are paying attention. Now folks are not only paying attention, they're starting to educate folks right here on this farm about, well, Craig, how come you're not using as much water? Why are there so many more insects pollinating your plants? Why are things a little bit greener even during these drought years on your property than other properties? Why does it just seem more vibrant? And that all goes to the spirit of this executive order. It's around biodiversity. It's around alternatives to synthetic fertilizers and new strategies on mulching and composting. It's about recognizing that climate change is not just about greenhouse gas emissions emanating from tailpipes of vehicles, but it's the opportunity to sequester in our soils these greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon rather, in our soils that presents itself as an extraordinary opportunity to future-proof our state, our nation, and the world that we're trying to build in the light of global climate change. Just think about this. 2,850 different types of soil here in the state of California. Close to 3,000 different soil types. The remarkable biodiversity that exists and persists here in the state of California. I mentioned the 5,500 different plant species. Again, 40% endemic here in the state of California. The abundance that we have, it's sitting right here. We're standing right on it. We're looking all around, and the ability to bring to bear Mother Nature's extraordinary contribution, the life and liveliness that she brings to bear every single day. All the solutions are around us. The answer to all of our anxiety and stress is around us. It's abundant. And so the abundant mindset, not the scarcity mindset, is what we bring to this executive order. A sustainable mindset, not a situational mindset, is what we bring to this executive order. This is a critical part of the climate change conversation, and it so often is omitted when we talk about climate change. We get so consumed, as we should, by energy and industry, commercial and residential side of this equation, and we forget our working lands. We forget our natural lands. We forget about species, and we forget about animals and plants and insects and all of these things that truly make life not only worth living, but life even capable, human beings even capable of living. I want to just extend, again, a bias by not only connecting the dot, my mother's side, my grandfather, Arthur Menzies, but on my father's side, left another legacy as it relates to preserving land, as he did with Prop 117, which he led here in the state of California, set aside land for mountain lions. The contribution that was my first pet when I was a young child, a river otter. Some people have dogs and cats. I had a river otter, Potter the otter. It's my first pet. And so when I, again, think about climate change, I think about animals. I think about plants. I think about insects. I think about farming. And of course, growing up in this state, how proud are we of our farmers? How proud are we of our ranchers? When you think about California, we talk about exporting innovation and that entrepreneurial spirit. We talk about the fact that we're entertaining the world, but we're also feeding the world. It's part of the three-legged stool that makes California such a special and unique and vibrant place. We're not going to walk away from agriculture. We're not going to dismiss or deny agriculture's future in the state. Quite the contrary. We have profound respect for those men and women that are out there every single day doing the hard work that we often take for granted when we're out there grocery shopping, and the abundance of choices that we have. And we want that extended for generations to come. And so that's why we are committed to working in a transition that is inclusive, a transition where we are incentivizing the kind of behavior that I think resides in each and every farmer and rancher, and that's a desire to leave a legacy, to leave something to generations unborn, to be able to look back as you do every single year with a mindset that recognizes a broader sense of permanence. And I think that framework is also, again, represented very much in the spirit and the letter of what we are advancing here today in this executive order. So I could belabor this, but forgive me, I won't. The executive order speaks for itself. We put out some guidelines in a press release that more simply lay out the tenets of what we're advancing. But 30 by 30. This state can achieve this. Let's see other states adopt similar strategies, and we can do so that doesn't hurt builders, doesn't deny our audacious housing goals, doesn't deny, in fact, anything. It only creates more opportunity, builds more collaboration, builds more bridges, builds more trust. And again, if we're ever going to address this issue of climate change head on, we will move at the speed of trust. And so that formally and foundationally is a big part of this effort. Final words. I want to just thank two members, Member Rivas and Member Kalra, for their good work that they did this year. They had bills in this space. They didn't get across the line, but they made enormous amount of progress in contributing to this debate and to this moment. And I want to just thank both of those authors and legislative leaders and their staff for all their outstanding work, including, again, my staff, Jared Bloomfeld, to Karen Ross, our Agriculture Commissioner. I mentioned Wade Crowfoot, and other members of our team that also worked hard to bring this executive order to light. So that's the announcement. And of course, we are here, as always, to answer any questions, but just briefly, let me update you on COVID-19 transmission. Today's 7-day track is at 2.4%, 7-day positivity rate in the state of California down to 2.4%. Yesterday, Dr. Galley made some announcements about a number of counties that are moving into less restrictive tiers. Progress continues to be made on that front, but again, a sober reminder of the power and potency of your individual actions and importance of physically distancing to the extent you can, avoiding mixing, particularly indoors, and the importance of maintaining your vigilance on wearing a mask. I also want to just update briefly on the 22 now active fires in the state of California. The two that have generated most attention, the glass fires at 58% containment today, and the August complex, of course, the largest in state's recorded history, over 1 million acres that have burned just in that August fire, about 60% contained. So progress on both those stubborn fires. Final words before I open it up. It's just a reminder, these fires, climate-induced fires, and the pandemic that has created economic dislocation and anxiety, that we have to think about our interdependence in terms of these issues and not silo any of these issues any longer. And I want to bring all of that to bear and all of that to light, because a big part of this executive order is also about active forest management, reforestation, not just prescribed burns. It is about making our forests more resilient, making California more resilient to the impacts of climate change and wildfires at the same time, as well as keeping us healthy in the spirit of this pandemic by detoxifying our air and detoxifying our water. And so with that, happy to answer any questions after I sign the executive order. All right. With a walnut. In fact, a walnut in one hand, and a pen in the other. All right. I'm holding up a walnut without the big. All right. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having us. And Leslie, thank you. Happy, of course, to answer any questions.
Hi, Governor. Sophia Bolag here from the Sacramento Bee. I'll be asking questions on behalf of the press corps today. Wanted to start out with a few questions about the news out of your office today that a staff member of yours and a state employee who works nearby to your staff have tested positive for COVID-19. Annabelle Munoz of ABC asks if you can tell us more about how you're handling those cases and how many people were exposed and are self-isolating.
Yeah, so both individuals not working directly in our office, but in the governor's office, extended in the Capitol, and both are going through a contact tracing process led by the Department of Public Health, and they have both been isolated, and we are working back from that frame to make sure that everybody is appropriately tested, and anyone that's been in direct contact also goes through the protocols and procedures that we have put out so that we're not just preaching, but we're practicing what we preach. And so that's already underway, and it's just another reminder of how easily transmitted this disease is, and how, despite some of the good news on our positivity rates and some of the stability we're seeing in our case rates across this state, how virulent this disease remains and how easily transmittable this disease continues to be.
Do you have a number for how many of your staffers are self-isolating right now?
I don't have that. This brand new information, everybody going through the appropriate protocols. The good news is our office, we've been putting out a telework framework. Our office does not have the concentration of people that it had pre-pandemic. In fact, quite a small number of people are actually physically in the offices. One of these individuals is an intern and another a staffer in one of our state agencies. And so we're going through all of that, and we'll be as transparent as we possibly can, respecting people's rights and privacy. But we're doing this by the book, utilizing the protocols that we believe should be advanced across the spectrum, private, not just public sector, health-led contact tracing methodology of making that determination. And we'll provide that to you when they conclude their effort.
Several reporters have asked when your last test was and what the result of that test was.
Well, I haven't been tested positive. I've been tested on multiple occasions. I've highlighted 2 of those occasions recently, including the last occasion, which was when the president visited. And I look forward to getting tested again.
So just to clarify, the last time you were tested, was you tested negative when the president visited?
Yeah, I've never been tested positive, been tested negative on multiple times. You may recall in similar press conferences like this, we've been very transparent about a number of those tests, including a visit to a state prison here, and obviously taking protocols. We were tested on multiple occasions in anticipation of meeting with the president, including on the day, in fact, hour prior to his visit. All those tests negative.
Last week, we learned that Disney chairman Bob Iger had quit your economic recovery task force. What was your reaction to that news?
I had a wonderful conversation with Bob, who's been very active and participatory in our task force. I'm incredibly grateful for his support, his insight, his counsel over the period of the last number of months, and didn't come to me as a surprise at all. There's disagreements in terms of opening a major theme park. We're going to let science and data make that determination. I understand the dialectic, the friction, the frustration that many business leaders have, that they want to move forward sectorally to reopen. But we're going to be led by a health first framework, and we're going to be stubborn about it. And that's our commitment. That's our resolve. And while we feel there's no hurry of putting out guidelines, we're continuing to work with the industry, amusement parks. And by the way, amusement parks aren't just Disney. You've got all kinds of amusement parks, including smaller parks that are out there in the piers, like down in Santa Cruz, and others that may be impacted. And so we're trying to work through all of those things. It's very complex. These are like small cities, small communities, small towns. But we don't anticipate in the immediate term any of these larger theme parks opening until we see more stability in terms of the data.
And I believe last time you spoke about your economic task force in one of these press conferences, you said they were helping with sector guidance. Can you give us an update on what they've accomplished so far?
My gosh, dozens of things. I've updated on many, many different occasions the work of the task force. Again, task force's work is not just around economic growth, it's also about equity and inclusion. About 120 members of that task force. They've advised us for many, many months on the sectoral guidelines. We have small working groups, a number of subcommittees that are part of the task force. And not only did they guide us through the application, but also the implementation of many of the guidelines regarding within sectors, but also guided us through a budgetary process, responsible in no small part for advancing over $100 million of budgetary support for new small business tax credits, hiring tax credits in the state, the waiving of the $800 franchise tax fee for new business startups, an idea that emanated from that task force, the new revolving loan funds that we provided, over $100 million to the iBank for microloans to small and minority-owned businesses, those that have otherwise fallen through the cracks of our PPP program and can't get SBA support. Those are just 3 anchor examples. There are many, many other examples of the work of that task force. And that task force is one of many economic supports that the state has, including formally the work that's being done at GoBiz and the incredible network of small business supports that exist and persist throughout the state of California, including the other advisors that we have, less formal than this 120-member task force that are also advising us on next year's budget and advising us on a new package of economic supports and small business support coming into January in the next legislative session.
Sorry, Governor, could you clarify who is on that task force you just mentioned, who's advising you on the budget?
There are 120 members of that formal task force.
Oh, okay.
There are dozens of other people. And I want to remind everybody of my background. I don't come to the issue of small business and economic development intellectually. I come from it quite congruently as someone that's had the privilege of opening a small business right out of college, pen to paper, $7,500 investments from 13 or so investors, and opened that business over a quarter of a century ago with one part-time employee, Pat Kelly. We were able to grow that business, a small wine store to restaurants, a number of hotels, a number of wineries, doing business in many different counties up and down the state of California. It's been the privilege of a lifetime to have an entrepreneurial background, to be able to take risks, to be out there on the front lines. I have a unique perspective, understanding what our sectoral guidelines and how they impact businesses, how those translate because of that business background, and deep reverence, not just respect and admiration, not just intellectual, deeply emotional reverence for entrepreneurs like those that are out here moving down a path, marking a different frame of reference and stretching the imagination of what's possible. Again, the spirit that defines the best of California. That is still, that spirit, alive and well in our state, and we need to harness it, and we will advance more efforts still next year, and I look forward to working with the legislature and working through next year's budget to continue to support our small businesses even more than we have in the past.
Paul Rogers of the San Jose Mercury News has a question about the order that you just signed. He asks, 47% of California is already owned by the federal government, mostly in national forests, national parks, and BLM lands. Would this initiative seek to limit commercial uses of those lands like logging, grazing, mining? And if so, how is that possible when the state doesn't own them?
No, it's about conservation. It's not about, again, a scarcity mindset. It's not about taking something away. It's about an inclusive, abundant mindset. It's about incorporating our hunters and our fishermen and women. It's about incorporating those that want to recreate and those that want to do the good work that we need to do in terms of actively managing our forests and biomass and all the other working and natural lands, adaptation and adoption that is well defined here in this state. Look, 53% of the land in the state of California, it's about 104.8 million acres in this state. State itself, 104.8 million acres. 53% of that is public land, state and federal land. And so we will work with our federal partners, we'll work with our public partners, but we will work as well with our private partners to actively manage and engage these lands in these larger conservation efforts.
Alex Michelson of Fox 11 asks, what's the most important thing we as individuals can do to combat climate change?
I think it's the sum total of our individual acts that make ultimate determination of our fate and future. Remember, total consumption is nothing more than the sum total of all local consumption. So it's our consumption choices. It's our day-to-day activity in terms of our preferences. And do we support farmers like the Sierra Orchard? Do you support an operation like that? That's a choice you can make when you go to the store or you go online. What kind of choice do you want to incentivize by creating a market? There's no substitute for free enterprise, creating markets and incentivizing better behavior. And I think consumer choice can really drive these markets. Policy is an accelerator. That's what we're advancing here today. But within that consumer consumption really is the genesis of the response to that question. And that goes across the spectrum, including the kind of cars you buy, light bulbs that